Welcome to Wrasslin Raw! Alright, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Yeah, but is she Goose or is she Gander?
Joe Giamateo.
Listen, China is more woman than either one of you could handle.
So true. I am the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on October 27th, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Tulsa Convention Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and features just Vince McMahon and Jim Ross on commentary. No King tonight. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Boomer sooner.
All right, then. Let's get into it. First thing I had to note, there was a sign in the crowd during like the whole opening panning shot that said, "I want the British poodle." I thought that was clever. This kicked off with Nation of Domination coming out, and I reflexively popped. That faction music they have is fantastic. When it kicks off with that, "We are the nation," I still get goosebumps with it. It's especially with their timing now, because they march down so perfectly to it. I had to laugh at Rocky's big R shirt that he was wearing here, and at Vince calling Farouk Mr. Farouk. What a pretentious shit. Farouk wanted to talk about that locker room vandalism that happened last week that we kind of really didn't get to see, and Farouk really laid into it in this interview. I popped again when Farouk called himself a new breed of black man. Hell yes. Vince got pretty indignant, saying that they allow no racism in the WWF, and then changed the subject to Rocky, who, of course, draws a lot of hate from the audience. I personally loved it when they kicked Vince out of the ring. That was great.
Beautiful.
And I loved it even more when, as soon as the first word came out of Rocky's mouth, it felt like the crowd volume tripled in this crescendo of hatred. It was great. I loved when Rocky called himself a straight shooter while giving the camera a slight smirk. Oh, you cheeky devil. I popped again when Farouk said to the Hart Foundation, "This all started with a boat ride, but it's going to end with a fist up your white ass."
That. I almost used that as my opening line.
Farouk laid out a challenge to the Hart Foundation for next week, and the Hart Foundation immediately came out to respond to a pretty big damn crowd pop, I might add. Unfortunately, Bret is still stuck in the Canadian patriot mindset, so after he accepted the challenge, he laid down a few lines about how Canadians aren't racist, which turned the crowd back to booing him again. But the real meat here is that Bret pointed out that Shawn Michaels and his boy toy Triple H were behind it all, stirring up shit. Of course, that gets an immediate response from Shawn Michaels coming up on the Titantron there with DX. Chyna was looking fantastic with that beehive hairdo thing she sometimes does. She was really rocking it in this episode. Shawn called Bret the Grand Wizard of the KKK and lined up a whole bunch of references to white hoods.
Subtleties there.
Ugh. The final straw was that Shawn said Bret had used the N-word, and the Nation charged up the ramp and attacked the Hart Foundation. And this segment ended with Vince saying the word melee and Bret limping with an injured ankle. Later on tonight, we'll have two title defenses, the IC and championship belts. We're going to pause it here. I love the way this episode started. The Nation of Domination is finally in that groove I've been waiting for. Same with Degeneration X. Things are just falling together so nicely. I just wish we could allow the Hart Foundation maybe to be the baby faces that it really seems like the crowd wants them to be. Joe, what'd you think of the way Raw opened tonight?
Well, I felt as though I had a fist shoved up my white ass. I just love hearing the Nation cut promos now. Like you said, they're really in their groove right now. So yeah, this was really, really entertaining to see this. A really good heel promo from both Farouk and Rocky here. You know, they're obviously going a little too hard with the whole racism angle because it's just not like, I don't believe that Bret Hart is the Grand Wizard of the KKK, you know? So it's a little bit unbelievable to me. So it went a little bit too hard on that at the end. You know, then they say that Brett used the N-word. I mean, it's like, come on, guys, let's just tone it back a little bit, make it somewhat more believable here. But I really did enjoy the Nation, I guess the first half of this segment.
I agree with you both. I thought that this was a strong segment, especially the Nation when they started coming out and Rocky on the mic. He says, shut your mouth to someone. He doesn't say know your role, but he does tell someone to shut their mouth. So I did like that. He's really coming into his own on the mic now. You could definitely see that he's pretty much The Rock at this point. He certainly has the sideburns now. One thing, though, that is a little bit odd, and, you know, I only came by this by accident, and Bartlett, you briefly alluded to it, talking about your confusion about how we never really got to see the locker room.
Yeah.
I think we may be a victim of editing by Peacock, because by just accident, we're pretty close in time right now as far as date wise goes, is to, you know, following along. And on Instagram, I ran into a quick video that they had on there saying, you know, this day in WWF. And it was last week's episode where the Nation is confronting Vince McMahon at the commentary table. You remember that whole scene?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right before that, they showed the locker room, and there was all sorts of vaguely racist things written on the wall.
Oh.
One of the things is the Uncle Tom spray paint, which, if we remember, D-Generation X had a sign that said that as well a few weeks ago. So now that ties them as being the people that really did it here a little bit harder. They're using that same term. So I think the Peacock edited it out, and that's why we're a little bit confused and didn't get to see that footage.
It's interesting they would edit that, but they're not going to edit the Uncle Tom sign that DX held up.
I guess maybe just because that was just its own segment and there was other things written. I can't remember everything that was on the wall, but, you know, maybe there were a few things on the wall that was more offensive than that, and that's why they ended up cutting it or something, you know?
I'm interested in the fact that apparently the WWF actually had plot continuity for once.
Yeah, something funny that I just, you know, ended up stumbling across while right in the middle of watching these same episodes. So kind of funny.
Yeah, I was reminded of the Peacock's censoring habits in this episode because they censored out one of the suckets, I think, towards the end. I'm not sure during which exact segment, but not
Shawn Michaels' bleached asshole. That will show.
Very oddly selective censorship.
But suck it, it's got to go.
Well, Vince is in charge of all creative, so... All right, that last segment took us into our first match of the night. Triple H with Chyna and Shawn Michaels defeats Goldust with Marlena by pinfall in 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Talk about deja vu with this match. Am I right? My God, Triple H, Chyna, Goldust, Marlena. It feels like we're, 9 months ago again?
Yeah.
I hated Vince saying, here they are, back together again, as if he's talking about a romantic comedy here. But the newlywed couple vibe is definitely less than it was before, so that's a little promising. After a commercial break, we came back to Rick Rude in the ring to announce Triple H, even calling him the future of the World Wrestling Federation. That'll never happen, I'm sure.
No.
Hunter just didn't look right in the blue blood robe, doing the crotch chop at the same time. It's just visually unappealing. Jim Ross then said that next Monday night there's going to be an exclusive interview with Marlena to see what 30 days with the late Brian Pillman was like.
Oh, boy.
I hope we can pretend like he never said that, because if they deliver on that, it's probably going to be a low light.
Ooh.
Yeah. Shawn Michaels joined commentary, and the match finally got going. I didn't care for Shawn running his mouth, but Chyna's game was on point. At the start of the match, shoving Goldust. When Goldust got tossed outside, Chyna hit him with a body slam on the ramp. That all looked great. The work between Goldust and Triple H wasn't bad. It did feel a little fresher than the last 24 times we saw it, but I had a hard time getting past Shawn's cocaine commentary. He was talking and just grinding that gum in his mouth and taking his clothes off like he's sweating, like somebody that had just snooted an 8-ball before coming out.
Did you say grinding?
I feel like Hunter is using that fly over the top turnbuckle sell that he borrowed from Michaels a little too much. He used it twice in this match, and it's getting kind of predictable. Things ended with some nice interference from Chyna, who I would say was the star of this segment, and then the usual degenerate behavior from DX afterwards. I didn't think this was the best match ever, but it got DX on our screens, and I was entertained by it. Joe, what'd you have to say on this one?
Yeah, you got to give the people what they want, like I said before, and they want to see DX and all their antics. So, we got that here, and this match, like you said, it's a little deja vu, Goldust versus Triple H, but these gimmicks, both of them, are very different from what they were 9 months to a year ago. So, yeah, this was a little bit different, but, I was thinking this whole time, with this DX stuff, this is where I kind of wish the old Goldust was back. I think he could have done some pretty funny things with all this talking of suck it.
Yeah.
So that's a missed opportunity there, but it was still somewhat enjoyable. I'd say that I disliked a lot of the involvement from the women, but I did really like seeing Chyna beat the hell out of Goldust. And I pop every time I see the guys do the suck it gestures towards Chyna's crotch. I'm a big fan of that. So that was fun to see.
Yeah, it felt like definite deja vu, but it maybe has been just long enough that it felt a little bit fresher. I wasn't moaning like I was 9 months to a year ago when they were just having match after match after match. And, the action between each other was pretty solid. And Joe, like you said, they're both in very different spots than they were then too. So that made up for it being a repeat. But learning that we are going to talk to Marlena about her 30 days with Pillman, like post-mortem here. This is pretty ridiculous. I thought for sure we were just going to forget about the whole rape storyline. The fact that you were just interviewing his widowed wife. Let's just drop it. But we're not. And as you predicted, and I agree, that's probably going to be a low light for next week. But back to the match, ended pretty entertaining too. I mean, we obviously had the interference with Chyna, but Joe, like you said, we got that very familiar scene at the end where they all stack up on each other and everyone is crotch chopping towards Chyna. just so graphic and lewd. Just fantastic.
It's just not right.
The old group chop. Hey, let's go see what's on Jim Cornette's mind this week. That's been entertaining. What grinds Cornette's gears? I thought this was a great take. The whole segment, Jim left nobody out. And by that, I mean he made reference to Shawn Michaels. He made reference to Bret Hart, but focused on WCW for the most part. And the recent match, I guess, between Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper, I don't know anything about that, but, and other people that call themselves or have been called by others icons. That was kind of his theme here. And I think overall this was my favorite Jim Cornette segment so far. Jim ended it with a personal note to Hulk Hogan saying that Hogan may be a household name, but so is garbage, and they both stink when they get old. After that, we reviewed a local legends segment that they had prior to going on the air tonight. They started with the best to ever do it, the man himself, Jim Ross, Oklahoma native. Before moving on to the other legends, in order of appearance, we had Cowboy Bill Watts, the Briscoe brothers, Jack and Jerry, and finally Danny Hodge. And that is where this segment wrapped up. Ryan, what'd you think of this mid-match filler here?
I completely agree with you. This was my favorite Jim Cornette grinds my gears segment by far, I thought. His idea here, or theme, I guess, a better way to put it, of people who call themselves icons. I thought it worked itself really well. Him talking about Hulk Hogan and Piper, I guess, having a cage match with each other, it sounded. He brings up like hip replacements and stuff between the two. This was one thing, and we know from Cornette talking about the upcoming screw job that he had a bit of a hand in it. He claims he's who basically said, well, just do this, The reason that he gives that Bret Hart isn't an icon is because he just keeps on complaining about screw this and screw that. And just like him saying that just 2 weeks leading up to Survivor Series makes it, really odd, as we've talked about in the past, how much they've beaten that Bret Hart getting screwed by the WWF down our throat for well over a year now. So,
yeah.
But yeah, really good segment and talk by Jim Cornette. At the end, he says, in his eyes, the only people that he feel really have claim to being an icon are the ones not claiming it, like The Undertaker, Stone Cold, and Ric Flair. So good comments from Jim, and this one seemed the most, I guess, true to heart for him. It seemed like he was really speaking his mind, I thought. The Oklahoma Legends thing, it was kind of interesting to just, see JR get his plaque, and then Cowboy Bill Watts came out and Sonny gave him a semi, give him a kiss and hanging around his neck. So yeah, some filler segment, but pretty entertaining, I thought.
Yeah, with Jimmy Cornette here, you can tell that Vince is kind of letting him do his thing. He's not producing this whole thing. It's just Jim Cornette's own words and thoughts. This was a good one, because he's bashing the other product, but also saying some things about the degenerates on the Raw show. And also, I guess the contract talks between Vince and Hulk Hogan are probably over based on this episode of Raw. Yeah, then we had the Oklahoma Legends, and JR's penis had to be throbbing rock hard during this whole thing. And I guess we're just going to honor the Briscoes in every city we go to. We honored them in St. Louis and now Oklahoma. Also, how ironic that we did a racism angle on tonight's show, and then we also did a feature on Cowboy Bill Watts on the same show.
Hoyo. Yeah, I thought it was funny seeing the Briscoes again, too. They were just so happy. They had those big old smiles on their faces because they knew they were hitting the pay window for no reason.
They're just collecting plaques at every town.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Let's go into our next match. Ahmed Johnson defeats Owen Hart by disqualification in 6 minutes and 17 seconds, with Owen Hart retaining the Intercontinental title as a result. We made sure to start this off with slow-mo footage of Owen breaking Austin's neck. It's,
we had to have seen it like 300 times.
Yeah. At least.
Between that and the Owen 316 shirt, it's kind of getting over with me. I gotta admit. Ahmed came out with a Breathe Right strip on his nose. It must have been left over from the recent sleep apnea he developed when he gained that 90 pounds. He was also glistening with oil. And this started with Ahmed no-selling everything Owen was doing. Ahmed also had at least 3 knee pads on each leg, and you would think that somebody with that much gear would be less injury-prone. Somebody should probably write that down.
Yeah, write that down, please.
Owen did the smart thing here, which was avoiding interaction with Ahmed for the most part. And the Nation of Domination showed up just as Vince was saying melee for the 10th time so far tonight. I loved Owen putting Ahmed's injured hand in between the steel steps. That looked great. And just using them to stomp and crush the injured hand. It was such a great visual. But I was especially turned off when Ahmed started the Ultimate Warrior jogging in place rally. Good God. Ahmed could barely get his big ass up far enough to hit a scissors kick. And I was legit surprised when Stone Cold showed up to hit Ahmed with the stunner. They did a perfect swerve with the Nation of Domination up there. I never saw Austin coming, even though I should have. And that stunner is what gave Owen the victory and ensured that Owen would be having defending the IC title at Survivor Series. Austin exited through the crowd. He got molested the entire way. and that's where this ended. So, gentlemen, Ahmed has gained another 117 pounds. Ryan, do you like him more or less because of it?
Well, there's more of him to like, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure it transfers into actual liking, because he's even more slow motion now that he has that barrel gut on top of all those muscles. Owen, he does his best to try and make this match serviceable, but Johnson just fights him left and right and just doesn't allow him to do it. I did like that JR, we talked about that someone needs to write down that Ahmed is injury prone, and I think he did, because he brought up that Ahmed Johnson has been in the hospital numerous times. Glad to hear JR's caught on to that. At one point, Johnson, in his deciding if he's going to be a baby face or a heel or whatever, he grabs and tries to desecrate the Canadian flag. But someone should have maybe told him that kicking a feather-like object in midair doesn't look all that great on camera. He tries to kick the flag as he drops it, and it just kind of tangles up around his foot, and he shakes it off, and it just looked dumb as fuck, which, no surprise there coming out of Johnson. But then he ends it with a very weak looking spine buster, one of the weakest I've ever seen. And then that's the cue for Stone Cold to come in and save everything. And, Bartlett, just like you, I need to be expecting it at this point, but somehow they keep on sliding it in there when I don't expect it. And he nails it, and I popped with the crowd. So the end was good, but Ahmed Johnson really hurt the rest of the segment.
Yeah, I don't have much to add that I thought was a highlight here in this match, but yeah, just a couple things to kind of go along with your comments from you guys. This smashing the hand with the steps was some really impressive David Copperfield-like shit by Owen. So,
yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because it's Owen as the aggressor there, but there's a lot of guys then and even now that would make that look really fucking fake, but that looked pretty good. And I'm with you guys. Austin coming out was a surprise. We should see it coming, but I didn't see it coming. And, he's making sure that Owen retains that title because he made it very clear that he wants his belt back. So it's just really good storytelling going on there, and, had to be really exciting for these live crowds to get their hands on Austin as he goes through the crowd after he hits a stunner.
They felt him up good.
Yeah. Yeah, so that had to be really exciting for those live crowds back then.
Yeah, I wonder if Ahmed's, what'd you say, Ryan, barrel gut?
Yeah,
was equally as exciting. I thought, honestly, whenever I was watching this, I saw that gut too. I didn't quite think barrel gut, but I did think to myself that he's kind of starting to look a lot more like Vader every day.
A little anvil is what I was getting out of that gut.
Yeah, no, that's a lot more accurate. Yeah. All right, well, there's going to be an expose interview with Jeff Jarrett later on in the style of the Goldust and Mankind interviews. I'm curious if that's going to be as lame as it sounds. And then we got some head-to-head action in the 1997 Karate Fighters Holiday Tournament.
You called it. You asked for it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this ever since the last Karate Fighters Tournament, and I was hoping that we were going to get some brackets here. This round was Jerry Lawler defeating Brian Christopher, and we did get a bracket. I was not happy to see it, though. In the first round, there's Jerry Lawler versus Brian Christopher, then El Matador versus Carlos, something called DOK, I don't know what that is, versus Shrimp Scampi, and finally Sonny versus George and Adam. What a goddamn disappointment.
How are George and Adam going to control the singular button controller that controls the karate fighter?
I don't know.
Bro, I don't know.
I'm guessing Shrimp Scampi is going to be a midget, but the DOK is what's like really got me.
Doc Hendricks?
Yeah, it was just, maybe it is Doc Hendricks.
No, yeah, that's how they spell Doc, is DOK.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm ready for Doc then. Doc's Cocaine Jam, Cocaine Karate Fighters with Shawn Michaels. All right, well, so...
Commentated by Vin McMannequin.
And Bruce Pritchard. Mankind came down to the ring after that with JR in the ring to do the interview about Kane smearing Dude Love last week. And I thought this was fantastic. Even though Mick Foley has been here the whole time, it feels like Mankind went away so that he could come back after we missed him. And I did miss him. This was fantastic to watch.
To defend Dude Love's honor, he comes back.
Well, because all the dude ever wanted was to spread a little happiness.
Yeah. Dance.
That's all. Yeah.
Have some dudettes follow him around.
Show off great rhythm.
Absolute. It really is the everyman, Dude Love. I also especially liked Mankind highlighting the fact that he and Paul Bearer had an unspoken truce to live and let live. That was great plot filler. And I was waiting for somebody to address that, and Mankind was probably the best person to do it. He also conveniently ignored Vader in that conversation. This was interrupted, though, by Commissioner Slaughter showing up to say that since both Mankind and Kane were not in their right minds, they therefore could not be in a sanctioned match. Mankind didn't like that, so he applied the mandible claw to Slaughter. A flood of officials came down to break it up. And that, my friends, is where the first hour of Raw ended. And I was happier about the Mankind interview than I was about the Karate Fighters tournament, to say the least. Joe, what'd you have on this segment?
Well, so who were the commentators there? They had Vin McMannequin and Jumbo Jim.
Bruce Pritchard was playing Jumbo Jim.
But the Vince voice sounded like Bruce Pritchard.
It was Pritchard
like
too.
Yeah, like a voiceover thing.
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny, but I mean, look, we're going to get this every fucking week for like the next, 5 or 6 weeks. So I don't know. Not that excited about it. But the Mankind interview, at first, I was a little questionable here with this because I didn't think Mankind was acting very deranged at first, but as soon as Sergeant Slaughter came out, things definitely changed, and I really enjoyed it. And it shouldn't be that surprising, but Sergeant Slaughter, ever since he has been commissioner, just the storytelling abilities of him as a commissioner have been fantastic. Like him telling them they're both unstable was hilarious. And he's really putting Kane over. He's basically saying Kane is too dangerous and you are not going to have a match with him. And I've really enjoyed Sergeant Slaughter as a storyteller commissioner so far.
Yeah, starting with Karate Fighters, I was a little bit happy to see it. I do kind of like these tournaments. The bracket didn't look all that strong, but I guess we'll see moving forward. The Mankind interview, though, I really did enjoy. I thought Mick did a great job of setting up how angry Mankind is for the treatment of Dude Love and calling out Paul Bearer for ruining this innocent kid and pointing out that they were, work together, saying that he thought they left on good terms and had an unspoken truce to, not cross each other. So having Kane destroy Dude Love, he was now going to be a roadblock in the way of Kane trying to go after the Undertaker. I thought that all worked really good. Great storytelling there. And then Commissioner coming out, like to both of you, loved him saying, no, you're just both crazy. I can't have that in the ring. Can't be sanctioned. And Mick has a great job of adding just a little bit of comedy to a serious scene in the way that right after Slaughter says all that, he says, what if I said please? It's just a great point there. And then immediately snaps on the Commissioner, puts his fingers down the gullet of the Commissioner. And we all know that that's going to lead to him being allowed to take on Kane. So yeah, I thought the segment worked all around, really.
So my big thing with this Karate Fighters tournament bracket, because it's going to keep me up at night, it's bothering the hell out of me. They have so many mid and lower card people. Yeah. Like, why are we going full blown ridiculous bullshit comedy here? I'm imagining a Karate Fighters matchup between like D'Lo Brown and Taka Michinoku. That would be entertaining as hell.
We had Sid in the last one, and we had good. Yeah. Upper mid-card people, not lower mid.
We don't need Austin or The Undertaker, but we've got so many people to work with here. We don't have to do this. All right, so now we started off the second hour with a neat video package about Ken Shamrock being in the zone and Bret Hart
Roid raging.
No, he's in the zone.
They even did the like camera quick shaking around, like him trembling from the roid rage.
He's just an athlete in the zone, okay?
Okay.
Well, that took us into our next match. Bret Hart versus Ken Shamrock ends in a no contest in 12 minutes and 15 seconds, with Bret Hart retaining the WWF Championship as a result. I was actually pretty excited for this going into it ever since we heard about it last week. I was looking forward to it. The action started out a little slower, but I mean that in comparison to the balls-to-the-wall speed we've kind of come to expect with most of our matches here in 1997. This almost felt traditional. With that being said, Shamrock did a great job of adapting to that. It's no surprise that Bret Hart could work that style, of course, but it was slightly surprising that Shamrock was able to make things look so tight in such a controlled way, maybe is a good way to put it. Keeping with that theme, I was a little put off when Bret went for the figure four around the ring post, because that's kind of starting to get a little bit old too. He's doing it in almost every match now. But Shamrock sold the shit out of it. I don't know if because it looked like Shamrock's balls got crushed, or it was just like he was good at screaming or what, but that was one hell of a sell job.
What balls he has left.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to blow his voice box out. He screamed so loud there.
I love that falling leg wrench that Bret does. That's a great move. That looks like poetry in motion there. Bret hit a great looking DDT. Shamrock's rally, that looked really great. He kept his limp and he kept like the look of exhaustion, but he was still ramping up the energy. I felt he did it really, really well. Bret brought a steel chair into the ring. Referee Earl Hebner looked right at it and left it in. Kenny had to kick it out, being the honest, good referee that he actually is. I loved Shamrock reversing the sharpshooter attempt into an ankle lock. Unfortunately, Earl Hebner has a glass jaw and had went down when somebody briefly brushed up against him the wrong way.
And stayed down. He was down for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't able to see Bret tapping out where he was at, and with the referee out of the way, Bret was able to then hit Kenny with that chair, knocking him down long enough for Bret to apply the sharpshooter. But then out of nowhere, Shawn Michaels in the ring with the sweet chin music. Something about the way that camera angle was set up, and every time they do it, really, whenever Bret Hart is on a sharpshooter and then receives sweet chin music, it's like his head is at the perfect level to make everything look nice and easy, and he sells the hell out of it. It's always a great thing to see. But Shamrock, that's where Shamrock had enough. Kenny snapped. He started screaming and beating the shit out of Shawn Michaels. That drew in officials to separate things, DX and the Hart Foundation too. Shamrock was the only one getting a crowd pop in that mix. Every time he screamed, the crowd would shout right back at him. Once Ken left, it was Bret and Shawn and DX and the Hart Foundation repeatedly going after each other until things got fully de-escalated. So, guys, just, first off, to get this out of the way, I thought this was a great match. This was fun to watch. Everything about it made sense. I was emotionally invested in it. All in all, we could say that this might have been a highlight. However, the aftermath, decent. Don't have a problem with it, really, but I'm left asking myself, why wasn't this the headliner? And if this isn't the headliner, whatever is the headliner, it must be really freaking good, right?
It's gotta be.
Just food for thought later on. Joe, what'd you think of this match?
Yeah, that was my thought too. It's a championship match, right? This was not a non-title. I think the belt was on the line, so...
Yes.
And it wasn't just a complete throwaway match either.
It's two big names.
And it didn't just end in 2 minutes. It was like a full-length match,
Yeah, and it, what I thought of was, it seems like a pattern that they are, if you remember, the second hour of Raw is when Nitro is going off the air. And I feel like they are, they did this whole package right before this match of Ken Shamrock hitting the zone, and he's going to go up against Bret Hart for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. They're making a big deal about that second hour start. So, it seems to be a pattern. We're probably going to notice it more and more. I don't know. But, this was a really great match to watch. Both guys did a great job in this match. I think that Bret was really selling hard for Ken Shamrock. He was selling some of those punches like he was hit by a ton of bricks. Like he would just go down on his back after one punch. And, it was just really cool to see. And I love the idea of flipping the sharpshooter into an ankle lock. I thought that was well done. Yes, I hated all the stuff with Earl Hebner that happened with that, but it was very creative before Earl got barely touched. That was a very creative part of this match. And I love the snapping on Shawn Michaels. That just shows that nobody is safe from this lunatic. He wasn't snapping on Flash Funk or Uncle Cletus or some jobber. So I think that really helped kind of sell Ken Shamrock as a dangerous man, the world's most dangerous man. And I thought that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, not just the part at the end, but really this match in general does that for Ken Shamrock, because Bret Hart does a fantastic job of putting Ken over here. And, Shamrock deserves credit too. He puts in the work here too. But Bret, the veteran here, really doing what he can to put Ken over and helping him out in the ring as a fairly newcomer to the WWF now. Vince tells us that tomorrow night on USA, it sounds like they're going to have a clip show where they show a bunch of old classic Survivor Series matches, and he brings up that they're going to have Hulk Hogan in his prime versus Undertaker, and then he takes the opportunity to rip in the Hulk for, like the third or fourth time this episode. He rips into Hulk being over the hill, and but one thing I did like Vince saying, though, is he makes a joke about Bret Hart apparently is going to be a guest on Mad TV, and he goes, that's quite fitting, isn't it? And it even goes to today, because Bret Hart is by far one of the most bitter men to ever wrestle. I mean, my God, just bring up Goldberg. That was a great joke by Vince. And the action, I was surprised. I was a little worried. I was excited for this matchup, but worried that we were going to have some antics to make it end early. But we end up with a good, almost pay-per-view level length match. Good pacing, good storytelling. Everything in there was really great. And then it does end up, dissolving into chaos right at the end with the useless Wiener getting knocked down and staying knocked out from a brush to his head. He was out for 20 minutes good. But great part with Shamrock snapping on Michaels. A great looking suplex, and then he just starts pummeling him. And I fucking loved it, and so did this bloodthirsty crowd. I mean, they were cheering for it. After it, Bret and Shawn, after the 10th time they went at each other, it was kind of getting a little bit old. But outside of that, really great segment, I thought.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. Well, with a start like that to the second hour, I mean, it's only up from there, right? That's usually how this is supposed to work. After commercial break, Vince got a word in with Bret Hart asking where this animosity between Bret and Shawn is leading to, with the answer obviously being Survivor Series. Bret says he knows he won't need to worry about it anymore after that, so I'll trust him. That directly led into our next match. Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg defeat the new Blackjacks, Bradshaw and Wyndham, by pinfall in 2 minutes and 5 seconds. The Blackjacks were already in the ring and had no entrance. Billy Gunn is still wearing the Rockabilly outfit, unfortunately. And when this ended, the Godwins hit the ring, then the Headbangers with a taped-up together boombox. I loved that part.
I did. I popped for that.
And that's all I've really got to say about this. Talk about throwaway. I mean, it was good to have Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg on our screens again, but, I mean, really, Ryan, what'd you think about this?
Yeah, not much. They came out, the New Age Outlaws and the New Blackjacks. I thought we got a whole lot of news in this match, but outside of that, there wasn't. I mean, it was very quick. The biggest thing that stuck out to me was I laughed about the taped up boombox. I mean, it was just so stupid, but hilarious.
Yeah, so near the beginning of this match, I thought, geez, Vince just randomly announces that Gorilla Monsoon is very ill in the hospital. So that was weird, just weird placement of it.
Yeah.
But get well soon, Gorilla, I guess there. Billy Gunn had one of the best chair shots to the back that I've ever seen. Like, I thought that was unbelievable. I mean, it was... just a lot of times these chair shots to the back just look so set up and fake, but this was a really good one. He hits one of the blackjacks as they're hitting the ropes, just perfect timing. So I enjoyed that. And I laughed my ass off when they were punching holes into the hats of the blackjacks. I thought that was funny as hell. And and the boombox was funny too. And did you notice that the Beautiful People was accidentally playing on the boombox when they
I missed that.
The camera zoomed in on it, and you could hear The Beautiful People by Marilyn Manson for about 2 seconds, and then it cut away.
A good catch. I missed that.
Yeah, me too.
We got the news after this that Mankind and Kane will have their match at Survivor Series. I guess it was a goozlin.
I mean, all you have to do is goozle the commissioner to get what you want, and you'll fucking get it that night.
Tickle the gullet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taking a play out of Shawn Michaels' book there.
Mm-hmm.
Stick something down the authority figure's throat and you'll get what you want.
Yep.
And when the lights went out, it was hellfire and brimstone and mistimed pyro for Kane's entrance, coming down to see JR in the ring and do an interview, or I should say Paul Bearer, really, to do the interview. Paul started talking up Kane, of course, to build up that match against Mankind, citing the living hell that everyone will be subjected to. After that, we got a view of DX in their locker room, with Shawn wanting to send a serious word directly to Bret Hart, and that word was Shawn's hairy ass crack. Vince was at a loss for words, barely containing his erection, as we got multiple camera angles of Shawn's asshole, really. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It was Shawn's asshole.
Yep, the sphincter was winking at us.
Degenerates.
Ryan, what did you think of Paul Bearer, Kane, and Shawn Michaels' asshole here?
The Paul Bearer Kane thing, this was, kind of standard promo out of Paul Bearer, but he does a good job saying to Mankind, you're not a roadblock, you're just a pebble in the road. Good stuff, verifying that we are going to get Mankind versus Kane at Survivor Series, and I'm excited for that. The asshole segment here, where we got to stare right up to the fucking small intestines of Shawn Michaels here. Again, as we kind of talked about earlier, some reason Suck It will get bleeped, but we don't blur the entire ass crack of Shawn Michaels multiple times here. So I do feel Vince was like, a special request when he signed the rights over to Peacock was like, I will do this. However, they must leave in Shawn Michaels' ass crack.
Yeah, I've really liked a couple lines here from Paul Bearer that, saying Mankind is a pebble on Kane's path to destruction, like you said, Ryan. I thought there was some really good lines there. I really hate hearing Vince McMahon announce Kane coming to the ring, though. I'm looking forward to him leaving the commentary table soon, because
aren't we all?
It is night and day between Vince and JR when we're talking about a Kane introduction. So looking forward to that. And yeah, the butthole, I'm a fan of the butthole on cable TV, I guess. I think that's how you draw attention to your product, is by putting a butthole on TV.
Yep. Drawing awareness to rectal health is something that really shouldn't be ignored.
Right.
Somebody in Shawn Michaels' age,
No, you need to get that prostate checked out.
Yep. And he showed you right where the finger goes.
It goes here.
All right. X marks the spot. DX marks the spot. All right. Oh, God. Okay. Speaking of assholes, let's go to our next match. Mark Marrow with Sable defeats Flash Funk by pinfall in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Man, it's a good thing Flash Funk got Jobber of the Week when he did, because Flash got 0 entrance here. He was already in the ring. You know, we were talking before we went on the air here, and I'm just glad that he at least jobbed out to somebody like Kane to earn Jobber of the Week, as opposed to Mark fucking Marrow here.
Yeah.
Sable and her demeanor continue to stand out as not fitting in at all. Like, everything that she does just looks like it doesn't belong. Like she's just wandered into the middle of a movie. This was stark in contrast in terms of looks. By that, I mean strictly the visual of these two. Marrow looks good in this new gimmick. No two bones about it. He's really sinking into it, I felt, especially standing next to Flash Funk's boots and fucking bodysuit. Marrow did, however, do a high-flying maneuver, despite commentary hyping up his new non-high-flying ways. Commentary also said that Marrow would be on the American team at the Survivor Series, which to me was just a disgusting statement on a few different levels. Not looking forward to that. Flash Funk did hit a fantastic-looking kick on Marrow. I don't know what to call that, but it was like one of those like multi-step Muay Thai boxing kicks or something. I don't know. It was like a 2-step kick and it looked amazing.
It was what a maneuver.
Yes.
Well, it was. Marrow ended up winning with the TKO. So, Joe, it looks to me like Marrow was kind of starting to backslide a little bit here. He was losing some of the progress he's made. What do you think of this?
Yeah, for sure. I think that he kind of went to his old ways here a couple times, and this was really just a waste of time filler match. I mean, they didn't even do anything with the domestic abuse storyline that I love so much. They did nothing. And that fucking whip that Sable carries is so stupid. It's like, hey, I have no real sex appeal or acting skills, so just give me some shitty prop that I can wave around. Like, it's just, it looks so fucking stupid.
And she twirls it like a pom-pom instead of a whip.
Right. This was a complete waste and filler.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. We've been talking Mark up the last 2 times we've seen him, saying how much improved and how much better he's been looking, but he really took a step backwards this week, trying the high-flying maneuver right after they said that he switched up his style. I did like, though, JR pointing out that he switched up his style because Mark just wasn't hitting the pay window very often. Yeah. I thought that was a great line out of JR, but he really needs to, stick with that boxing stuff, because it just looks so much better. The moment he climbed up to that top rope and tried that high flying maneuver, it didn't look smooth again, just like when he was the Wild Man. So kind of a shame that he was going up and up and up and then boom, fell back down to earth this week.
Yep. So I thought of maybe a better comparison for Sable. It's almost like she has been superimposed on a wrestling match. Like, there's this wrestling match between Mark Marrow and Flash Funk, and in post-production, somebody looked at it and said, you know what, that needs more tits. And they just laid over some stock footage of some really poor barbed wire, like bachelor party imitator, like walking into the show on top of it. Doesn't belong there at all. All right, let's go next then to, what's next? Jim Ross's interview with Jeff Jarrett. Okay, that's going to be good, right? There was a lot of focus on Vince in this, in addition to Jeff Jarrett's gripes, There was a pretty good chunk of WCW shit talking, which was to be expected. And, I have to be honest, I don't really have a lot on this, because in this format, Jeff Jarrett is boring as hell to me. And I hate to say that, because for the most part, I like Jeff Jarrett, but, to get a little contemporary here, his podcast right now with Conrad Thompson, I don't listen to that, because Jeff Jarrett talking, for some reason, just bores the hell out of me. I like the guy. He's a great wrestler, but I don't want to hear him talk. And the capper on that, by the sounds of things, we're going to have another installment of this next week. So we're going to get more out of Jeff again. I don't know if you guys maybe have more than I do on this. Joe, what'd you have on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I can see your points for sure with Jeff himself, but I thought that this interview was actually really good. I thought that it served a couple of main purposes and served them very well. I think that if you're going to write off a gimmick right in front of the fans, this is how you want to do it. Jeff basically says that Vince saddled him with a shitty gimmick and wouldn't let him be himself. I mean, how many times have we heard that about Vince doing that to these guys? And even when he was shooting on WCW with the truth, it doesn't really come off tasteless at all, like a lot of times it does on Monday Night Raw. He basically just says that your in-ring ability doesn't count, and if you're not Bischoff's boy, you'll have no spot. I mean, to me, that is just, shooting and telling the truth, and I thought that was pretty well done. However, next week's agenda seems a bit iffy for me because Jeff talks about steroids, and I'm just thinking, oh boy. Oh. Where are we going here next week?
Ken Shamrock.
I thought that this interview was good, but I'm a little worried about next week.
Yeah, Joe, I think I'm a little more in your corner. I kind of enjoyed these interviews. I thought Jeff coming off saying, just blaming Vince as to why the whole Double J country singer thing couldn't work and shouldn't have done it, but Vince wanted it, so he had to. Basically says, but the grass wasn't greener over at WCW because he wasn't one of Bischoff's boys. So now he's back, but he's going to do his own thing. So I thought it did all of the things it had to set up Jeff Jarrett coming back, shedding the country singer gimmick. Next week, we'll see where it goes, but I thought fairly solid, better than the Goldust interviews, but maybe not nearly as good as the Mankind or the Mick Foley ones.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Probably definitely better than Goldust. All right. So, earlier we had that Ken Shamrock versus Bret Hart. We were like, if this is now, then the headliner of the show has to be amazing.
It's
right?
gotta be.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, let's go to our final match of the night. The Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, defeat Los Boricuas, Savio Vega, and Miguel Sasquatch Perez by pinfall in 2 minutes and 49 seconds to retain the WWF Tag Team titles. Billy Gunn and Road Dogg came out to sit off to the side of commentary. They did not speak here. They didn't have microphones or anything, but they were present.
And they had those broken hats on.
Los Boricuas came out with a Puerto Rican flag. They have been, and they did here, and it just feels like they're so late to the party. Late to what had already become a lame party at this point. But
you want to see a flag match, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Who doesn't?
Well, we've got USA, we've got Canada, we've got Puerto Rico. We need one more nationality so we can hit all four corners.
You already saw your favorite flag match of all time, and you want more.
Right.
More.
Vader and the Patriot.
Yep. I want to see somebody actually be able to climb a pole. There was a decent enough crowd pop for LOD. That's to be expected. And when things got started, Billy and Road Dogg grabbed LOD's shoulder pads after LOD took them off and set them off to the side. And that is what took most of our focus here, both because commentary kept talking about it and because the match wasn't all that interesting. LOD won when Road Dogg tripped Sasquatch Perez, and then LOD ran after Road Dogg and Billy Gunn. Next week on Raw, we'll start off our light heavyweight championship tournament.
Woo.
How about that? And before the show ended, we went back to the locker room to Ahmed Johnson's big ass for comment. And this was fucking terrible.
What the fuck was he? What point was he trying to make here?
I could barely understand it. Ahmed tried to make a half-assed metaphor about football end zones directed at Stone Cold Steve Austin. And that is where we faded to black. Well, I think my earlier statement about the championship match being the better way to end this episode still stands. Ryan, what'd you think about this match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
I don't really have anything to add about the match. I mean, they came down to the ring. The New Age Outlaws take the LOD shoulder pads, and that's pretty much the match. That's it. And then we end it with, just unbelievable Ahmed Johnson promo. I mean, it left me unbelievable. It left me flabbergasted. I mean, I was just speechless as to what he was saying.
So talking speechless. You'll be tuning in next week.
Entering end zones and picking, and then I'm going to pick you up and run you the other way. And I had no clue what the hell what point he was trying to make. Unbelievable.
Come again, Mr. Johnson? Pardon me, I didn't hear. I didn't understand that.
I didn't copy.
Billy and Road Dogg are acting like buffoons, which is connecting some dots here. I wonder if the intent all along was to add these guys to DX. We know that's going to happen eventually, but it makes me wonder. I'm sure that question has been answered at some point, but I'm just not sure. Vince tells us that the light heavyweight tournament is here next Monday, so I guess Taka or Brian Christopher will most likely win that, right? I mean, those have been the only two that have really featured. Yeah. And if I have my biggest moneymaker in the company, Stone Cold Steve
Ahmed
Austin.
Johnson.
He has a broken freaking neck. So if I want him to be protected and safe, I am going to have him work with Ahmed Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it sounds like that's what we're going to get. So I fear for Steve Austin's life.
Go tell Austin to go talk to Jeff Jarrett.
Right.
And Farouk.
And the Sultan.
And I'm sure we can come up with plenty more if we keep going, but as I said, we faded to black, so let's take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you take that first?
My highlight is gonna be the Ken Shamrock Bret Hart match, and the fact that we had Shawn Michaels' involvement here. Even though the events at Survivor Series are going to be terrible, we still need to build up to that main event, leading up to it. So I thought that did a good job doing that. My low light is going to be the Mark Mero versus Flash Funk match, because I just feel like that was just useless filler.
A highlight, I thought overall a fairly strong Raw, but my highlight definitely went to the Ken Shamrock Bret Hart match. Just really entertaining from beginning to end. That was the definite standout. Low light is going to be just kind of Ahmed Johnson. What he did in the Owen match was poor. And then this final segment just sent it over the moon to go to the low light.
Yeah. Yeah. So I said it earlier. My highlight was the Shamrock Bret Hart match. Just a great match all around. The fallout was okay, but still, and we had a pretty big selection to pick from in this episode. It wasn't a perfect episode by any means, but that Nation of Domination promo to kick things off was pretty hot. Lowlights, I ended up going with the way the show ended, highlighting Ahmed Johnson, especially in that. It just, this is the proverbial popcorn fart, the show just fizzled out in the rattle of Ahmed Johnson's nose with that breathe right strip. He probably had a deviated septum or a broken nose, because he is injury prone. I don't know if you wrote that down or not.
Well, someone should.
They should. So, Joseph, I don't suppose you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around October 27th, 1997 for us, do you?
There's a few good things here to report from the Wrestling Observer. Number one is a Stone Cold Steve Austin injury report. He has returned to the ring. He is doing short matches with Triple H at house shows. He is scheduled to wrestle from this point forward, including the Survivor Series match. And he's also going to still have that neck evaluation this week.
You think maybe before you get in the ring. But yeah, whatever.
Well, they're short matches.
I'm not a doctor.
The WWF wants him to modify his style, and there is a good chance that he'll never be the worker that he was. Very interesting line there from Dave. Well, you guys are going to love this, because this goes along with your low light tonight. Not only is Ahmed Johnson injury prone himself, but he also loves causing injuries. And Owen Hart suffered a severe concussion in his match against Ahmed Johnson tonight.
Jesus.
Get the fuck out of here.
In fact,
from the scissor kick.
It's from the scissor kick, supposedly.
It looked like he impacted his head, yeah.
But wait, there's more. There was legit heat with Johnson backstage because of that, and he also got in a legit fight backstage with D'Lo Brown.
Oh. No. I always thought D'Lo loved him.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Farouk tried breaking it up, but he aggravated his knee in the process. So,
God damn it.
Might be out of action, Farouk, for a couple of weeks. I don't know. We'll see. There was also some backstage heat with Jeff Jarrett, apparently, after his live interview that he did. Jarrett had to explain to people in the back that everything he said and did was ordered for him to do by Vince McMahon. So Jeff had to explain some things there in the back. There is at least some concern internally regarding the long-term status of Bret Hart. Apparently, Bret's 20-year contract gives him an out should he decide to give proper notice. So that's just a little inside info there that Dave Meltzer has no fucking clue what's going to happen here in a couple weeks. And the last piece of news here is that Yokozuna will not be returning after all. He had to undergo some tests in New York to get a wrestling license, but he failed physicals.
So the talk that he lost like 350 pounds, that was not true?
I am guessing that is not true. Or if he did lose 300 pounds, he probably weighed 900 pounds at that point. And that is all this week.
Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. I think that if Yoko lost 300 pounds, Ahmed picked up about 250 of it.
He handed it right over to him, yeah.
It's not surprising that Owen got a concussion from that. And I noted in my breakdown, that was a shitty-ass scissor kick.
It's the extra weight, yeah.
He didn't know how to work it with the extra weight, and he just put a little too much ass behind it.
I mean, he was a great worker before that.
Yeah.
So he should probably drop some weight.
One of the best.
Yeah.
Just threw off his calibration. He needs to just work on it a little bit. He'll be fine. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW, just at gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most disrespectful Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on November 3rd, 1997, with matches featuring Aguila, Vader, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.